Hello, Eric Liebenhagen here, and welcome to the Abundant OD interview series where we're highlighting successful optometrists who are working to make a positive difference in the world and contribute to a greater good. In our episodes, we want to get to know the people behind the title, what makes them tick, and what mission they are working to serve. So, they say hindsight is 20/20, and by listening to and learning from others' victories and mistakes, you can speed up your own journey and live as an abundant OD. So today my guest is Dr. Jessica Heinke, and Jessica has owned Family Eye Care of Woodstock in Illinois for over 15 years. In 2009, she acquired a second practice location in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. She's also an adjunct faculty member for Midwestern College of Optometry. She's a published author on dry eye, and she's currently working to position herself to continue to own her practice passively, being able to step out of the exam room, almost like being the investor in her own business, as opposed to being in the business every day and have a better work-life balance. Excuse me. So, Jessica, thank you for taking the time to come on the series.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. I've been looking forward to this ever since it came up on my schedule. So this is great. So tell us a little bit, first off, about just your background, how you got into this profession. I think I remember seeing you worked for your father's practice for some time in the past.
I did. I fought to being an optometrist as long as I could. I actually graduated from undergraduate school with the intent of going into broadcasting. I was the station manager of the college radio station and had a passion for that when I graduated. However, breaking into that market was extremely challenging and did not happen. So I started looking for alternatives, and one day my dad planted the seed in my head, well, you could still do this. And I thought about it for a little bit and said, okay, yeah, I guess I could. And so I ended up going back to get my pre-med prerequisites after I had already graduated from undergrad, and then completed my optometry degree in 2000 from University of Missouri, St. Louis. After I graduated, I worked with my father for 3 years, and we had done well together, but we had some different ideas on patient care, kind of old versus new. And so I knew I needed to step out on my own. And that is when I moved back to Illinois and started working for myself. And it's been pretty good ever since.
Yeah, very good. So those differences in patient care that you were just mentioning there, and having that be kind of one of the deciding factors to strike it out on your own, I think that would probably resonate with a lot of folks who would watch this interview and end up getting into private practice for themselves, is that there's some level of control and quality of service that they want to see that they're just they can't change in their current environment, no matter if that's working with family or corporate or anything else, right? So that kind of plays into perhaps the bigger mission you're looking to serve, or the change that you want to see happen, whether it's in the world, in your community, or for in the industry as well, right? I think we were talking about that right before the show.
Yes. Yeah. My difference with my father was when I graduated from school, we were taught about medical billing, and he graduating much earlier than I have, did not fully understand it or feel comfortable with it. And so it was a challenge for me to kind of practice to my complete ability. So that was kind of the motivating factor for me to move out on my own. Ever since then, I even when I moved back to Illinois, I did take up a lease with what was then Cole Optical at a Target, and started my own private practice within the Target, and felt limited by being in a corporate structure. And so quickly knew after that I really did need to have a private practice to have some satisfaction in my career. Once I was able to get into my own private practice and I started acquiring the equipment and kind of setting my own protocols, to provide complete care. I've been much, much happier with my career the way that it has gone.
Very good. So yeah, earlier you were talking about some of the changes or some of the things you've implemented in your practice related to the patient care itself. How's that different for you in your practice now as compared to perhaps some other practices that you've seen?
So I'm pretty confident and comfortable with my knowledge base, and so if I can do something in my practice and not have to refer a patient out, then I generally will manage most things. There are certainly appropriate times to refer out to ophthalmology or other specialties, but for the most part, I feel I can manage multiple things from glaucoma to, dry AMD to dry eye to cataract pre and post-ops and LASIK and SMILE pre and post-ops. So for most anything that doesn't need a scalpel or a laser to cut, I will try and take care of it in the office to keep the patient comfortable with their surroundings. Once I find that I'm referring out, then usually the anxiety level of the patient goes up because now they think it's a bigger deal. And even though it's, a big deal to me as far as managing their glaucoma and so forth, I'm comfortable that we're not going to see progression, as long as we're taking care of it together.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. What is there, and if so, what is it? Is there a bigger reason why, in the grand scheme of things, why you do what you do, how you, and I'm interested to know too, like, because obviously optometry was not your first love, is what you just talked about, right? It was not your first career choice. You kind of came back around to it. And I oftentimes find that folks that do this and then move on to have, a certain level of really success in that field, even more so than a lot of their counterparts, tend to latch on to, a bigger, almost like a bigger why, if you will. If you've ever read stuff by Simon Sinek or, The Power of Why and or Start with Why and all that kind of good stuff. Is there a bigger factor that motivates you to keep moving forward?
There's probably a couple of them. I think one is just the challenge, always wanting to learn, always wanting to progress, get better at what I do. And so I am very active in continuing my learning, and it may not be through continuing education, it might be through reading, it might be through talking with colleagues. I constantly try to figure out the newest, best, easiest way to do things. Sometimes the newest, best, and easiest don't always marry, but trying to pick the best of those. The other reason, I think, is that my undergrad degree was in psychology, and I've always had a strong interest in getting to know people and what turns them on, turns them off. And in the exam room, you are one-on-one with patients continuously. So you get to know a lot about them. You develop relationships with them. So, you celebrate the good times, you cry about the bad times. And that really has helped me, I think, foster my practice, is that personal relationship that I get with my patients. And understanding the anxieties and the comfort level and, trying to read into what they're asking for when sometimes they can't verbalize it. So yeah, I think both of those are my reasons or my whys.
Very good. What has been, so as you kind of look back through your career and find yourself, to where you're at today, what have been, what's one of the toughest challenges that you've faced in bringing some of your ideas into reality over the years?
Well, I made a pretty large financial mistake in acquiring a piece of property that I wanted to move the practice to, and did not do my research before I purchased it. That ended up creating quite a loss. Never did move the practice there. The construction costs would have just been too great. So that was a lesson learned. I probably would research that much better next time. As far as in the office, staffing challenges, and really coming to terms with my defects isn't the right word, with my ability to confront and to discipline people. I've realized that I'm not that great at it. So, and trying to overcome that downside of me. So I think the people management, I'm good with communicating with them. But as far as disciplining, I'm not as good as I need to be.
Yeah, confrontations are never fun, right? I have another organization I belong to, and for their staff members, they call them care-frontations. They like turn that around to. I think it comes from some of the teachings in forget the author's name is escaping me right now, but it's called Crucial Conversations. There's a book out there called Crucial Conversations. Can't remember the name of the author at the moment, but I think some of that came out of that book as well. It's great. It's a great read. But yeah, I think a lot of people can probably relate to that as well, right? Especially, I feel like I'm partially the same way, where I don't really love like, just confrontations, or, anytime something negative has to come up to like staff, or even with like family members, and having confrontations there. There's probably a mindset shift that we can put on that, kind of like the care-frontations, that can start to make that a bit better. But it sounds like you've been working on that and overcoming that over the years as well.
I think I have improved over the years. I still have work to do. So.
Don't we all? Yeah, that's great. Is there any other kind of like success, a victory, like a major challenge that you've overcome that has been outside of that's been real meaningful for you in your career? Or is it maybe recovering from a couple of those things you were just talking about?
So I guess my successes really were more kind of fallen into when I started to study dry eye, and I had no idea that I'd be passionate about it. But when I finally started to learn that there were techniques and things that we could do that actually would make a difference in patients' lives, and then really sticking both feet into the deep end to try and figure it out and get it implemented into my office, it became extremely financially rewarding, as well as professionally and personally rewarding, to be able to offer that type of help to patients.
For sure. Yeah. That, I think that speaks a lot to your constant desire to continue to grow and expand, right? Like you were saying, whether it's reading or something else, and you run across an idea, a concept, an area of practice that you don't think you would ever maybe venture into, but then after you get exposure to it and get into it a little bit, you find out, oh, this is really, this is something I can grasp and understand and handle, and use it to help more people at a higher level. And you start to, go down that path that you really didn't some things, these things come up that we didn't have all plotted out. Right. And
right.
A lot of us are really, a lot of us have the personality, I think. And when I say us, I mean, something I've noticed with, people in the finance or accounting space, and optometrists. It's one of the reasons why I think I get along with them so, is because we have similar personality traits. And one of those traits is like liking to have things kind of plotted out, knowing in advance what's going to happen. We don't like a ton of surprises, and we're on a path, and we're going to go, once we have a path set out, we're going to go conquer it or master it, right? But there are things that pop up during our progression down that path that take us on a side road that we weren't expecting, and a lot of times those tend to can work out once we find that we have a newfound passion in that area, right?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think the the part that helped me out a lot in getting, deep into the dry eye therapies is being able or having the confidence to reach out to the experts and asking for one-on-one help. For example, when I learned about the probing technique for the meibomian glands, I called Dr. Maskin and I asked him to help me, and he graciously invited me into his office and actually taught me how to do the procedure. When I had a question about meibomian gland dysfunction in pediatrics, I called the one author in the United States. I had a paper published at that time and, spent some time on the phone with her, and we actually wrote another paper together. So I would encourage others to, definitely reach out to, the people that we might consider a high on a pedestal, because they're very accessible and eager to share. So that was a huge, huge help for me.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I agree. I think a lot of times we do kind of, whether they're authors or whether they're authoring books or research papers or anything else, or they have some level of either local or national celebrity attached to them. Any one of those cases, right? We do tend to put them on a pedestal, but I found the same things throughout my career, is that if you just reach out, what's the worst they can say, right? They can say no, they're too busy, right? And it's like, okay, you're kind of I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
I said, if they say I don't want to talk with you, you're still in the same spot you were. Nothing changed.
Exactly. That's exactly where I was going with it. It's like, that's kind of what you were expecting anyways when you reached out. Like, or there's maybe that little nugget of doubt in your mind that when you first reached out. But if you realize, hey, these folks are just people and they're putting this stuff out because they want to help, right? I don't know of too many folks, maybe some, but not in this space so much, who are just pushing out information to feed their ego, right? They want to help. And that's a lot of times provides you an opportunity to be able to reach out and learn more. And now, was everybody going to invite you into their office? I think that's a pretty special contact there. But just to show you that kind of stuff does happen, right? It's not outside the realm of possibility. So that's a good lesson for a lot of folks. I'm really interested in this. When you told me you're working on positioning yourself to continue, you're going to own the practice passively, and you're going to step out. So a lot of times we call that an investor-led business, where we kind of go through stages in business where you start out being you start out with a vision before you're going to open, and then you kind of go into this owner-operator mode where you're maybe the only revenue producer. And then you build up to get associates, and then you're kind of manager-led. And then the next step beyond that is we kind of refer to as an investor-led. So think of, if you are up to own a business completely passively, and everybody else is in the office doing the day-to-day, and you're just kind of keeping the pulse on it and pointing them in the right direction when things start to get off track, stuff like that. What has made you want to pursue that option versus any one of the other multitude of strategies out there to either start to phase out through a sale or any other strategy you could think of? I mean, what's been your the driving desire there?
Probably winter. Especially now that we're starting to, it's Halloween and we're starting to see the leaves fall off the trees and the sky's turning gray. I don't like this climate at all, but this is definitely where my practice must be. So if I can create a situation where I can spend more time in the south and less time in the north, especially during this time of year, that's a huge motivating factor for me. I love my practice. I love my employee. I love my patients. I'm not ready to let go of that at all. So trying to balance those two things is really what is pushing me towards having that investor-owned practice profile. So I still like to be able to see patients on a regular basis, but just not as often.
Sure. No, that's great. And again, it's one of those things that until you sit down and really start thinking about it, it kind of seems like if you were to just hear it in passing, right? It kind of seems like it could either be, it's really tough, could be a long way away. Some people may not think it's entirely possible. I know people in all different industries, including medical professions, that are either working towards or have done, similar things, and really decided, I kind of decided I want to enjoy certain aspects of my life before I hit retirement age, or before I'm ready to sell the business and be out of it 100% or mostly. That we want to enjoy different aspects of our life a little bit differently than what we are now. And Midwestern winters are no joke, as you and I both know. So it's like I can see that. I can see how that's a huge factor there.
That, and then my children are both. Well, I have one in college in a southern state, and the other wants to go to college to that same southern state. We just purchased a property in that southern state, so we do have some draw to head us there.
Yeah, for sure.
So family and weather.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, is that a lot of folks may take a look at that situation and kind of really think that there's not much else they could do. They either close up shop and go do something else in that other state, or they just miss out on having that interaction, being able to be close, if that's if that's the goal, right? To still be close to family, even as the family's kind of moving away. So just having that as a possibility out there for folks can really is really helpful to know. All right. So is there any other, in closing, kind of any other piece of advice that you'd give to others who are at any stage during their journey as a living as an abundant optometrist or abundant OD? Anything else you'd like to share?
Oh goodness. I think I would just repeat the piece of advice I gave before, and is reach out to others. There's lots of people are happy to share what they're doing or how they got there, and being able to absorb some of that information is very helpful.
Awesome. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And thanks for all the great knowledge you've shared with us during the interview today. And I look forward to talking to you again here in the future.
Well, thanks, Eric.